We want to continue with our series on leadership. And we have been picking Bible leaders that are recorded in the Bible, and drawing lessons that can help us, today's leaders, to actually be leaders who lead better. And today I have picked Daniel. So I'm calling it Leadership Daniel Style. You know, Daniel was, first of all, a student. So we can talk about the life of a student. Because you see, he came as a young man, he came from Jerusalem, when Jerusalem was conquered. And he came as a prisoner, refugee, whatever you want to call him, into the land of Babylon. My friend, as a student, and he had a 3-year, like a British universities, he had a 3-year program. And in that program, he ended up to be a leader. Why? He set an example. He set up new things. In fact, when he suggested his things to the leader of the group, he said, no, you could have my head taken. But as a leader, he knew what to be done. He trusted in God. And he influenced, in his student days, he influenced the people they were with. But then when it's over, he is actually selected. There is an exam. And he does very, very well in his exam. And so he is appointed among the top leaders in the land of Babylon. Obviously, which is interesting in the sense that you are in a strange land. How would they ever make a stranger, a conquered guy, a leader of the people that have conquered him? And that's what he actually did. And then after that, he moves from one level to another until he is top. He is second to the king of this superpower. So he is a leader in every way. Now, so the first thing we see him is he's growing in leadership. But the second thing we need to know is he is a marketplace leader, not a religious leader. He was a civil servant, marketplace. Now, you need to know that basically as we learn about his leadership, we need to know his leadership is not leading a church or leading a fellowship. His leadership is leading people that don't believe in God, people that don't care about God, people that can be very difficult, people that want his head. And he is leading them. And it's important to understand that some of us, lead in similar positions in the marketplace, sometimes very hostile to our belief system, hostile to our values. In Daniel, we have an example of someone who led in such circumstances. But number 3, he was a prophet. God used him in a great way. After Daniel chapter 9, the rest of the chapters are talking about Daniel the prophet, whom God used in a big way. Up to today, we are experiencing some of the things he actually prophesied. God talked to him. And the other thing we learn about him in this introduction to mention, he was a prayer warrior, an intercessor. And he did all that without forgetting his leadership. So I wanted to draw several lessons out of this life of this leader. But the thing that comes out best is his excellence. Everything he touched, he did it well. Maybe the lesson we can draw out of this is we need to practice excellence, because if we do so in this hostile environment of our leadership, we will give our enemies a very hard time. You know, in Daniel chapter 6, verse 4 and 5, we read, at this time the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. Verse 5, finally, this man said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of our God. In other words, he did his thing so excellently that even after they created a task force to find fault in his professional work, they were totally unable to find something. They could tell the king, oh, this guy, he failed here. This guy, he failed in that place. He was a man of excellence. And that gave him such influence. The people who are competitors in the leadership knew very well they are no match for him. the king is likely to promote him. As a way of not getting this promotion, they start organizing how to bring him down. But they have a real hard time. My friend, as a leader, when some of the people in the board want to get you out, do you give them fodder to work on? Do you fail so much that they don't even have a hard time in trying to bring you down? Do you achieve your targets? The targets you committed yourself to the board as a CEO, do you reach them? The target you committed yourself to your supervisor, do you reach them? Do you work with excellence? If you do, sometimes the people not like you for your values, but they will have a difficulty leaving you. Because you see, the boss knows, the CEO knows, the board knows that their company is growing by leaps and bounds because of your presence there, because of the way you work, because of the output of your work. If you leave because they don't like your Christianity, then what will happen is that they are going to go down. The shareholders will be up in arms against them for losing this CEO. So they don't like you, but they have no alternative than to have you. That's what leadership should be all about. Where you work so well, they have no alternative than to bring you back. And that may be true of politics. People don't like you because you don't bribe them. People don't like you because you don't do the kind of things they do. People don't like you because you are not in the bar with them. But if you are delivering what you agreed with your constituency, when they finally want to get you out, you have a very hard time. Because you see, the opponents will be saying, no, let's remove him. After all, he is religious. But they are told, wait a minute, what about that project? What about that other project? What about the way he has helped my son? What about the way he helped my daughter? And you can see clearly they will have a rough time not giving you a second term. And it's not because they like you. They may be in agreement with your opponent, but they know which side their bread is buttered, like the Englishman says. And so for their own good, not for your sake, for their own sake, they will leave you as a leader because of the benefits they're actually getting. All that because of committing yourself to excellence, burning the midnight oil, so that you don't just do what is expected of you, you do more than is expected of you. That will make your leadership far much better. That's the way to insulate your leadership against opponents, against enemies, when you work with excellence. May the Lord help us to whatever it is we are given the task to do, whether it is at home as a young child, or it is a king or a president. May we learn the value that Daniel exhibited all his life of working with excellence. Then in chapter 6, verse 1, that is Daniel chapter 6, verse 1, we read, it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom. Verse 2, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king would not suffer loss. You know, I like this leadership. Daniel led with a clear job description. And I think it's important to learn that a leader needs to verify expectations, verify what his tasks are, and then agree to be held accountable for that. If you don't clarify what is expected of you, you end up, people will be measuring you one side and you are measuring yourself. You think what a wonderful job you are doing, but you are doing the thing they don't expect. So one of the good things about leadership, and we learn from Daniel, is clarifying exactly what is expected of you, clarifying exactly what is needed of you, then now agreeing to be measured on that basis. You as a leader, you need to do the same with your subordinates. Have proper job description. Beyond job description, also have a performance measurement system. It's not just enough to say these are your tasks. How will they be measured? What objectives am I to achieve? List them. Then number 3, how will I measure them? It means if I fail, I don't need my boss to tell me. I can also tell I failed, because the boss and myself agreed exactly how we were going to measure performance. I think it's important to understand what Daniel is saying is clear what is expected of him, and he is willing to be held accountable for it. They were to do administration, and their basic objective was to ensure that the king did not suffer loss. Very clear. You know, an objective has to have an object and a verb. What's the object here? No loss. No loss is the object. What's the objective? Not allow the king to suffer loss. Loss is the thing. So there is a verb. Their work was to ensure that anything they did, ensure the king business became better and better, not worse. So are you clear about the objectives of your job? Or you're just clear about the tasks? Why do you do the tasks? You need to understand what is the objective you're trying to achieve. That you need to understand yourself, but it's not enough for you to understand. The board's understanding of it must be in agreement with you as a CEO. And similarly, don't just agree the objectives. You must agree how they will be measured. When the year is over, it's not a good time to agree how to measure, because the way I measure is not the way you measure. Agree at the beginning, when there's nothing to measure, how will it be measured? And that will be something that is pretty important. Then in Daniel chapter 6, verse 3, we read, "Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom." This is a leader who identifies and uses his God-given gifts to serve the area of leadership he's having. In fact, we learn here he had exceptional qualities or exceptional gifts, and he used the gifts, applied the gifts in order to achieve his leadership role. I think one of the things we are learning here is that you need to identify, do a SWOT analysis that allows you to know what are your gifts, what are your strengths, but what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, but what are your threats also. Because by understanding what are your exceptional qualities, as this we are told here, Daniel had, then you apply your area of strength, not your area of weakness. You will seek help in your area of weakness. But some people keep pushing on the area of weakness, yet they haven't made a strength, they are ignoring. Why can't you approach your task from your area of strength than from your area of weakness? For example, if you know you are not good at talking, then your job doesn't involve just talking. Why can't you, as a person, do the things you have a gift for, then have somebody who works with you, and whenever you are giving a report, you say, "We have come to give you a report, we work as a team," and then allow your subordinate to actually continue and speak. You'll still be the boss, and you have communicated. People will be happy with you because you have communicated, but you have learned your area of strength. If you're not good at writing reports, it doesn't mean you avoid them, but it means you can look for a person who can help you to improve your report writing. But you have strength. Nobody who has no strength. Identify them. These exceptional qualities that will help you to actually achieve. And good leaders know those ones, but they also must know their weaknesses so that they don't operate from their weakness. They operate from their strength. Then we go back to Daniel chapter 6, verse 4. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. What I'm hearing is that he was a man of integrity. Not only did he work with excellence, which means he did a good job, but he did it with integrity. What we are learning here is that he had no corruption in him. My friend, if you are going to be a leader, you must not allow any corruption, even if the corruption is allowing your brother to get a job, even if corruption is allowing a weakling to do well. You can't use, if you are a CEO and not an owner, it will be corruption to use somebody who is substandard with a certain task and help them. To be so, soon enough there will be a big case that there was this and this and this who are capable, yet he allowed so and so and so. You will argue, I was trying to help the weak, I was trying to help the person who are low in the society. You can't do that with other people's property. An owner can employ somebody who is not good, but you can't do that. For you, it is meritocracy. You are supposed to produce the best for the king, so you go for the very best. But we learned he had no corruption. And corruption doesn't just mean that he didn't give bribes. Corruption doesn't just mean he didn't receive bribes or give bribes. It also means he did not show favoritism. He knew he's a steward of what belongs to the king, so he did not misuse it and show favors using it. And that's a question. You may be a doctor in a hospital, and you allow your relatives to bypass the queue. That's not your property. This is somebody else's property. If it's your own clinic, that's different. But you are talking about somebody else's property and you're managing it for him. So, no corruption. The other thing we learn about him, he was trustworthy. Who is a trustworthy person? This is somebody who you can trust intuitively because he never lies. And there are people who you cannot fully trust. They are so good at promising, they don't mean evil, but they promise too quickly. They make vows quickly. Then finally, they don't keep the vow. Now, you need to understand if that's your weakness. That's a very serious weakness. Daniel, we are told you could trust him. He was trustworthy. And finally, Daniel was not negligent. It's not careless, negligent. The word here used is negligent. And there are people who are negligent. They are capable. They are good at what they do, but they can be careless. So that most times he does well, but once in a while he will forget something that is very critical, or he will be late for work, or there will be something negligent about what he is doing. I think it's important to understand, as we are learning here, good leadership, like Daniel's leadership, is a leadership that has integrity at all times, whether at home or at work, wherever. You can trust the person, and that will be important. We are still in chapter 6, verse 5 says, finally, this man said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. In other words, a leader, or Daniel, was openly godly. They knew they would catch him. He prayed 3 times a day, and he opened the window facing Jerusalem. What they saying is, if you truly want to serve the Lord well, let people know what your stand is and how you relate with God. If you do, then whenever you are doing something they don't like, they say, hey, Ngangan, you came to be a Christian. That's why people like to be quiet. They keep saying, people don't know I'm a Christian by my actions. They will not know you're a Christian. They will know you are acting like a Christian. The only thing that can convict you that you're a Christian is your admission. Now, Daniel clearly, openly behaved a Christian, so that it was very easy to catch him. Some of us, if somebody wanted to accuse us of being Christians and they took us to court, they can't prove it. They say, but this guy doesn't drink. There are some non-Christians who don't drink. You say, he doesn't run after women. But there are people who are satisfied with their wives and they are not Christians. It's important to understand you must openly confess your relationship with God, so that people know they can come to you for help if they need somebody to pray for them. Like Daniel was clear. People say, hey, if you have trouble, talk to so-and-so, talk to Daniel. I want to ask you, in your leadership, is your Christianity hidden until people have to do a research to find out? One day they come and find you are an elder in your church, and say, what? My boss is an elder. He has never even looked like he has ever been tempted. I think it's important to understand, Daniel teaches us that it may give you trouble, but God will be on your side and protect you. It will be important that you understand what he is saying. Let me go back to Daniel chapter 1. Verse 1 says, then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them in the language and literature of the Babylonians. I think Daniel did well as a leader, but we have to admit that the king invested in him. I think that's important for us to understand. And you as a leader, you may have natural gifts of leadership, but I think it's important to also take courses on leadership. Try to improve yourself. And it's important to see there is a place for education, even in leadership. Why can't you take a diploma in leadership or in the area that you are operating in your leadership? I think it's important to understand there is a place. Of course, if you have no gifts to be difficult to improve them, but education will improve every gift. If you are a good leader, you'll be a better leader if you actually take time and give it. And that's what these people are. 3 years of serious teaching produce better people out of this team of young people who are in Nebuchadnezzar's university. And I think that's one of the things we should learn from Daniel. It's important to take work seriously. If you're a student, take it seriously. You will discover later in life, you may not necessarily repeat what you learned in class, but you have now gained a discipline of studies. Any job you are given, however little you know about it, you are able to study. And all that comes out of your seriousness with taking whatever it is you are learning. And that will be important. Chapter 1, verse 6 says, among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name was Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, it was Shadrach. To Mishael, it was Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. You know, they had to operate after that with the new names. In fact, the king kept calling him Belteshazzar. Can you interpret the dream? You need to understand that any name cannot change you. Change of names will not change your values or who you really are. And so you should allow that to come into your mind very seriously. That a lot of people think that if they are called a Hebrew name or a Bible name, therefore they are Christians. Tells us absolutely nothing about you. We are told you shall know them by their fruit. How you walk is what will show us the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5:22, not the names you have. And so there are even people who actually change their names because they think my name is not good. No, God is capable of blessing people using bad names. These names were not good names at all. But it did not stop God using Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, nor did it stop Daniel being used of God. And I think that will be very important to understand. But related with the same, please understand, once you now know the name doesn't matter, then you understand your title doesn't matter. Don't feel like you cannot be a good leader because you're not called managing director. The title they give you will not. Please understand your task, understand your objectives, work at them. You will still be a good leader, even if they don't give you a magnificent title. Titles do not determine your success, and it will be important to understand that. Then in chapter 1, verse 8, we read, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. This young boy grew up hearing God's word, understanding what God wanted. You know what happens? He is now in a strange land all by himself. He still is able to make a stand. You know, a leader needs non-negotiable values. Things people know, don't bother Nganga with that. No, don't bother Otieno with that. What are your values? Do you have biblical values that are non-negotiable? You are willing to be fired. You are willing to lose your job. You are willing to lose a contract. If you do, God will be on your side, and you will certainly be a leader, a good leader. Then Daniel chapter 2, verse 27, 28, we read, Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you are lying in bed are this. We learn very clearly that it is important you do not take credit from God. God says, I'm a jealous God. My glory I will share with no one. It means then, even the king, like he knew nothing about Jehovah, but Daniel wants him to know, I am not the one doing it. God is doing it. Do you tell your board how you get help from God? Do you tell your supervisor how you work with God and how his organization has been blessed because you work with God? Or do you hide the fact? Please give credit to God for the things you are achieving. You know, Daniel was both good leader and a good follower. One of the things we learned is that although he was a leader, he followed the king. He respected the king. And no one is a leader who is not a good follower. You must learn to respect the king. You know, in Daniel chapter 4, verse 37, we read, Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble. Because of walking with God clearly and openly, he was finally able to get his king to get born again, if you want to call it born again. Now he says the only God to be worshipped is the God of Daniel. It took a bit of time, took a lot of temptation, took a lot of persecution, but you can influence your supervisor if you are consistent and clear about your values and clear that God is the one leading you. You know, chapter 6, verse 1 says that God wanted him to rule throughout the kingdom. The king wanted him to rule throughout the kingdom. Do you understand your limitations? Or do you end up doing things out beyond your location? It's important not to be too busy doing other people's work and forget your own work. Daniel kept it. You know, as I go towards finishing, it will be important to understand that leading does not preclude being involved in ministry. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 24, we see the prophecies of Daniel. 77s are decreed for the people and your holy city. Verse 25, know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. And then he talks about the death of Jesus. It's important to understand he was a man of prayer and a man who kept listening to God. Do not assume because you are a managing director of a factory, God does not want to involve you in ministry. It's possible to do ministry by the job you do there, but that one you do on 8 hours. The day has 24 hours. You should tell me, outside your place of work, what other ministries are you doing? Inside your place of work, how are you evangelizing and discipling? What kind of influence are you having for the kingdom of God? And that will be very important. So you must lead with compassion. And it's very clear that Daniel had compassion for the followers, and he even had compassion for the king. In Daniel chapter 4, verse 19, then Daniel, also called Belshazzar, was greatly perplexed for the time, and his thoughts terrified him. So the king said, Belshazzar, do not let the dream or its meaning alarm you. It was very clear, although it is the king in trouble, it touched Daniel. I want to ask you, do you show compassion to the people you lead, your followers? The moment they learn you care about them, it will be much easier to work with them. Do you show compassion for your supervisor? He knows then you cannot stab him on the back. Do you show love and compassion? That's what will make your leadership far much better and greater. My prayer is that you will learn to lead for the audience of one, that you will lead in order to bring glory to God. And when you do so, he is your only audience. It doesn't matter how other people are giving you a bad name. When you do so, you will discover that God is walking with you to victory. Thank you very much.